Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Sejohn Sarawik. Sejohn?
Hey everybody, what's going on, Devon?
You know what? I'm just kicking off right from the beginning today because my day started with something on, of all places, Facebook. A stupid thing was getting passed around, and I guess I was tired enough to want to contribute to a groupthink Facebook sort of pass them around. It's a meme. I think the word is meme. I don't know why I'm acting like what.
Yeah, and that was your first mistake, responding to memes on Facebook.
Right. And the meme was write down the stupidest thing you got in trouble for in school. So that's the question. That's the inquiry. Now,
the stupidest thing I ever got in trouble for in school. That's a hard one because I got in trouble for a lot of legitimate reasons, and those are all the only ones that come to mind.
Right. The fun about this was I knew immediately the story that I was going to share with this stupid meme that greeted me. It has to have been pre 7 a.m. Right? Like it was roll out of bed, see the first thing that I see, and like, yeah, I'm just tired enough to be in the wrong headspace to want to contribute to Facebook. But then when I asked other people what they thought I would have written about, I was given answers for things that I had completely forgotten had happened in my life. So one that was given for me, but when I asked, what do you think I got in trouble for, was the time I bought the day after Halloween. On the way to school, I stopped off at CVS, and I bought a bag of Sweet Tarts, like nice. the give out Halloween size Sweet Tarts.
Of course, yeah, 50% off at CVS the next day,
exactly. Right? And my goal was to eat that entire bag of Sweet Tarts before homeroom was over.
Oh my God, my tongue hurts just listening to you say that.
So, this is fun. This is good. You just retching over there and me snickering is perfect.
It's not even like retching. Like I don't feel like I'm gonna throw up. I just like my tongue is at attention since you said that.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where I'm like, I bet I could do it. Right? It was 8th grade. I felt invincible. 8th grade. Come to find out, really sort of a divergence in a path for Devon Decker on the steps and journey to becoming Devon Decker.
If he hadn't gone into that CVS and bought those Sweet Tarts, he wouldn't be here making this show today.
I mean, it's true. I think on a very severe level, I could probably, beautiful mind those two events to each other. But I don't really think about that because, like, I had eaten 72 Sweet Tarts. Like, that's a good amount of Sweet Tarts.
That's a lot. No. That good is not the right word. We will say that was a lot of Sweet Tarts. I wouldn't say that's a good amount. To me, a good amount of Sweet Tarts is 2. And they were smart enough to put 2 in a package. So
they come 3 in a package. Or they were 3 in a package at the time. Oh my God, imagine if, like, I had larger ramifications from the Sweet Tart incident in middle school that Sweet Tart themselves, the Wonka company, Willy Wonka, heard of it and he's like, I need to put 2 in a package. 3 is too much.
I need to dial back. I can't let this happen to my Devon.
But the reason why it was my mother who suggested that this is the one that I wrote about. But that it makes sense that she would be the person who would say, this is the moment, because she's part of that story, and not in like a weird or negative way, but in a way that, like, they took the bag of Sweet Tarts from me and then the nurse of the school contacted my mother and she's like, your son's been eating Sweet Tarts, to which my mother said, yes. And the nurse, no, he's been eating a lot of Sweet Tarts.
I don't think you understand.
Yes. And she's like, well, he has a whole bag. To which my mother, well, of course, I was with him when he bought them this morning on the way into school. Oh, so you're aware of the Sweet Tarts. Yeah, he wanted to see if he could eat them all in homeroom or something. To which the nurse is like, well, that's a lot of sweet tarts. And she's like, so my mother, did you take the bag away from him? Well, of course. All right, so this is done, right? I'm not sure why I'm being involved. Not sure why I'm being contacted. Like, it seems like there was a problem. Y'all solved it. Check out the hook while my DJ revolves it. And I also really don't think of myself as getting in trouble because all that happened to me was the sweet tarts got taken away.
Yeah, that's not trouble.
That's
not
that's
trouble,
like,
yeah.
No, it's homeroom. I gave myself 5 minutes to eat a bag of Halloween sweet tarts. Knew I probably couldn't do it, but I got through a quarter of a bag of sweet tarts.
When the moral of your story is your mom got called for no reason, that should tell you right there that that's not an incident. That's you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is why the secondary offer, which is during a fire drill, I crossed like a driveway. Like, so you remember fire drills in high school? Just how insane that whole thing is.
Truancy. You ran away.
I did not run away. We just
Truancy.
it's just that people from the top floor were supposed to stay on one side of the driveway, and people from the bottom floor were supposed to stay on the bottom side, on the other side of the driveway.
That's crazy to me that you had one place where people met. How big was Coventry High School?
Coventry High School is huge, and it's really, there were corralling areas all around the building.
Okay.
But
yes,
it was
that
specifically
is what I remember
from
high school.
It was the back area. It was behind the building, the one that was like facing the road deeper into Wood Estates. Local references, getting you local work. But yeah, that road into like Wood Estates, that's how they did it. They corralled it so that people on the second floor would be on one and people on the bottom floor would be on another. And at the time, I was serving sort of as a teacher's assistant in a math course, because that too many stories to go into with that. But like, I didn't want to sit and study, so I had gotten a math teacher to let me just come to his class, and they were doing geography, and he's like, you're really good at geography, maybe you can communicate with these kids better to help them understand it.
And mean geometry, or do you mean that
I mean geometry? I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. See, like I said, I wasn't really a teacher's assistant. I was there to help people in a geometry class locate Greenland.
Okay.
But also, I was like a senior, so like, and I had one homecoming gig, so like I had they weirdly looked up to me, so it was like you can communicate to them on their level. It was a weird thing that happened. Lot of my
kids.
Yeah, hello, fellow. Yeah, that exactly. Because Steve Buscemi, we're big fans. We're not as big a fan as Brendan Fraser or Adam Sandler, but like he's third place, sort of by default. But yeah, and the teacher that I was working with said, "Oh, I need you to go give this message to another teacher who's on the other side of this driveway, the dreaded driveway."
Okay,
so I, without thinking, right, because I was asked by a teacher to go talk to another teacher, walked across the driveway, and I talked to the other teacher, and he said, thank you very much for letting me know. And it was when I went to go walk back that I was stopped in the middle of this driveway during a fire drill. And the teacher, I never had her, but she was a science teacher. She's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm trying to go back to the class that I'm supposed to be with. And she's like, you can't cross the driveway. And I'm like, well, I've already crossed the driveway. I'm trying to get back to my class. like, you're late. I've already crossed the driveway once.
you missed the infraction. This is me trying to correct it.
Yeah. So I just need to go over there. Like, I was trying to talk to this teacher for another teacher. I was a messenger. So she goes, you have to turn around. And I go, oh, okay. And I turned around and then juked her. Because that's what I thought. I was like 17 and thought like, this will be the way to do it. And I did. I turned around and then I faked left, went right around her, and then rejoined my class and thought, well, this is over, right?
Yeah, like she'll never find me now.
So then she, as I'm walking back to go into school because the all clear for the fire drill rings, she comes up and she hand on my shoulder and she says, you're coming with me. And I go, you're going to have to catch me first. Because, like, why not triple down at this point? I've already doubled down.
This is legitimate trouble.
This is legitimate trouble. And I said, you're going to have to catch me first. And I immediately ran from her to the principal's office.
I laughed so hard I ran into my microphone.
I ran to the principal's office and said, hi, I need a write-up slip for a senior student. And they're like, yeah, okay, who's this for? And I go, oh, it's for me.
Quick.
And then the secretary, what? And I'm like, yeah, no, I need to write myself up. I've been bad. I've broken a rule. And I need to, and I want I want it on the record that I know that what I did was wrong. So that when eventually the teacher that I've offended comes a calling, you can be like, oh, we have that on record. Yeah, this is what happened. Like, I kind of want my side on the record.
Just wanted you were pressing for double jeopardy. You were like, you can't get me in trouble for the same thing twice.
I honestly wish that I was pressing for double jeopardy, but my whole plan was, if I get it on the record first what I did wrong, they'll have her thing and they'll be like, yeah, he knows that he did this, right?
And his lawyer, Tommy Lee Jones, says that we can't charge him for the same thing.
Is that what double jeopardy's about? But yeah, so then later on that day, not at the school, like out in the world, like I was at work, someone, a person who worked at the school, but not a teacher, like, maintenance or one of those, is like, what did you do today? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, one of the science teachers was like running around the school trying to find you. And she was like asking everybody if they had seen you. What did you do? I'm like, oh, I crossed the driveway behind the school during the fire drill. And then they're like, well, where'd you go? Did you leave? And I'm like, no, I sat in the principal's office for the rest of the day. Wrote myself up.
Knew that I was lines. I will not piss me off again. I swear, I will not piss me off again.
Yeah, yes. And then so I didn't think anything of it, right? Because I wrote myself up. I spent my time in the principal's office. They're like, well, the teacher never showed up. Like, it kind of seems like a wash. Like, if she were that upset with you, like, she should have come here.
No, it turns out you had upset her so much that she wasn't thinking rationally at all.
Which is why 2 days later, when I'm in whatever class I was in, I think it was law. I think it was the law class I was taking, because my senior year of high school was a fucking joke.
We're not even going to discuss how this ends in a law class, but yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in a law class, and they're like, Devon, please come down to the principal's office. To which the teacher's like, what did you do? And I'm like, honestly, I think I'm clean right now. I didn't think I did anything to get called to the principal's office. And he's like, well, you should go, whatever. So I go down there, and there's the teacher sitting with a vice principal. And I'm like, oh, this, right? I guess this caught up with me, right? 2 days later, didn't really think about it. And, sitting in there, and I'm told that the reason why it had offended her and upset her as much as it did was because, 2 years earlier, during a fire drill, a student was close to the driveway and almost got hit by a fire truck.
Jeez.
Almost is going to be my operative word there, but also kind of a traumatic experience, to which I say, don't even acknowledge the teacher who is sitting there, right? Because she's not the one telling the story. The vice principal is the one telling me this, right? It'd be different if she were the one who was sitting there telling the story. But she's, I guess, so overcome with grief at the time that she has to have the vice principal relate the tale to us.
I mean, imagine, though, if she had actually instead treated you like an adult and explained herself to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's where all this is leading, believe it or not. So the vice principal says it to me, and I said, well, I have to be honest with you. If an event that almost occurred 2 years ago is able to put her into such a fragile mental state, I honestly think she should seek professional help, to work through that trauma.
Okay, George.
Like as if she's
That's
not
the most Costanza moment I've ever heard.
as if she's not in the room either, right? So this is the first time that she speaks, is after I say that. I say, see, he has no respect for this. And the vice principal says, we're going to call your mother. So they call my mother. And of course, I told my mother this story. Like, I'm telling this story now on my podcast, and it's at least 20 years later, give or take. Maybe it's just 10. It's almost 20 years later. Oh my God. That this occurred, and I'm willing to tell the story here. So like, we would sit around the dinner table and be like, what was school like today? I'm like, oh man, like I told the teacher, you got to catch me first. And then I ran to the principal's office, and that was like the one place she didn't think to look.
I was hiding in plain sight.
And then like, well, you know that you like, I'm like, yeah, if it ever comes down to it, I'll apologize for my actions, but I'm not going to apologize for crossing the driveway. Like, do you understand that? And it was like a discussion about like placating people's egos, basically. We had lovely dinner conversation in this house. So they contact my mother, and she's like, hi, we have Devon in the principal's office. And she's like, oh, this is because of the driveway thing during the fire drill. And that's already like silence in the room, like, oh, you're aware? Like he didn't keep this a secret from you? And she's like, I mean, he'll apologize for saying you got to catch me first and then running away. But like, honestly, I think she kind of overreacted a little bit. This is from my mother to the principal. He's like, well, you need to understand. And he relates the same story to my mother about almost seeing a student get hit by a fire truck 2 years prior, to which my mother, now there's no way that she can be prepared for this. Right? I have just found out this information. So it would be impossible, because we didn't have cell phones back then. It's not like I sent something in my pocket like Leonardo DiCaprio in The Departed to her. Actually, it was Matt Damon who did that. It's been a while since I've seen The Departed. Her exact words are, well, I think that you need to suggest that she seek some professional help if that's still bothering her. And they just hung up on my mother. That like mid-conversation, because clearly you're not going to get anywhere with this. And then the principal just said, what will make you happy, to the teacher? And she said, I want him expelled. The principal said, honestly, this isn't really an expellable offense.
Yeah, what exactly is the expulsion offense here? Excuse me.
She's
he
like,
was asked to go do a thing by a teacher, did it. Now, like, yeah, you probably should have done it with more grace, but the most that merits is an apology and maybe a detention just to look good.
Right. So she's like, well, he needs to be punished. So then the principal said, well, we can suspend him. And she's like out of the school for days. And he's like, no, that's not really a punishment. I feel like Devon would use that for good if it didn't have to come to school. So we'll give him in-house suspension.
We suspended him, but he just kept going to the soup kitchen to help everybody out. It was really...
I probably would have worked, I'll be honest with you. I had jobs that would be like, I can work these 2 days. I'm not going to school. Yeah, a soup kitchen would be good. But that it's weird. So they gave me in-house suspension, which I did turn into volunteer work in the band room, categorizing and alphabetizing 60 years worth of sheet music.
So the band room, the soup kitchen of the high school.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And then when this teacher found out that I wasn't sitting in in-house suspension, but I was in the band room doing that, she got very angry and said that I shouldn't be allowed to do that, to which the principal's like, I don't know what you want, really. Like, the kid's in trouble. I don't really even agree with you. But I didn't think of that. That was Dale's suggestion, because this is all stemming back to what I think the stupidest thing I got in trouble with in school, right?
Yeah.
So we've told the middle school story and we've told the high school story. We need to tell the elementary school story because, surprise, surprise, that's the winner. And I don't know if I've told it on this show before. If I have, apologies to any of the listeners. Apologies for all of this, but I promise what I am talking about right now feeds very well into exactly what I think we're going to be discussing this episode. What I plan on discussing this episode. And that is, in 4th grade, we had a long-term substitute teacher. and I did not have any respect for her. I was 10 years old, and I didn't feel she was particularly bright. And, I'm a 10-year-old, so whatever. But also, like, I had the actual teacher for some time. And
Right.
the
Yeah, and there's something about a substitute in fourth grade where you're already at an age where you're going to be a shithead. Like let's just lay that on the table. Everybody's a shithead when they're that young. And then on top of that, you already have the impression that substitute teachers are not real teachers. And then on top of that, you've got the impression that, oh, this substitute teacher is going to be around for a while. So this is like this is like the monkey house in here, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like
pretty much. Yeah.
You're setting up a recipe for disaster, as it were.
Right. So, going home one day on the school bus, someone asked me what I thought of her as a teacher, and my response is, Mrs. is an idiot. And I didn't think anything of it, right? I just said that she was an idiot. I said it on the school bus. It's not like I said it at the school, on the playground. I said it not at school, because I never viewed the school bus as school, and maybe that's my fault. Maybe that's a problem on my end. But then
it is an extension of school in so much as they're still responsible for you.
I don't know. I never actually viewed it that way because I would get in trouble on the school bus too, like for real things like fighting. And the people who dealt with us on the school bus, that was never related to the school. It was specifically the bus company and their people that were like, this is your punishment for what you did.
That's
weird, right?
Wild. That is buck wild, because we used to have fights on the school bus all the time. You got in trouble with the school. Like, the school was the one that laid the law down with the school bus. I don't know what dystopian capitalist future Coventry was already in the early 2000s, but like, if you get in trouble on the bus and the bus company is the one that lays the law down, we've got a problem.
You can't ride the bus for 2 weeks. Oh, okay. We'll inform the school. Okay. Like, it was weird, right? But because of that, I never thought of the bus as school. I thought of bus as like the Uber that I take to school. Not that Uber existed, but right? Like they were separate entities.
If only we had a thing back then that other people would use in order to use a car that wasn't their car. They could just call up and say, "Hey, I need a ride."
It was the school bus, kinda. I don't know, but yeah,
taxi, Devon.
Oh, it was a taxi. Right? I get. They're both yellow, right? I can be forgiven. But yeah, so I don't think anything of saying that she's an idiot to somebody on the bus, but another student who was on the bus and not really involved in the conversation told her that I called her an idiot.
I mean, that sucks, but you were having a personal conversation away from her. You didn't call her that to her face.
Thanks, Sejohn. I'm glad. I'm glad that that's what you said completely unprovoked. Because she said, Devon, I need you to stay after class as it was time to go to recess. And she's like, so blah, blah. First of all, selling out your source, right? If you're trying to prove to me you're not an idiot, you're doing a bad job.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do that in general. Anyway, sorry, keep going.
So blah, blah told me that you called me an idiot on the school bus. I said, yeah? And she's like, well, why would you do that? And I'm like, I mean, because I think you're an idiot. Like, that's why. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really have any respect for you. Clearly, as based on the fact of how I'm talking to you in a tone of derision. At 10, I don't even know what that sentence means.
There is a distinct moment in every one of your stories where it goes very much from you're clearly not doing anything wrong to you just being like, well, if I'm going to get in trouble anyway.
Yeah.
You just fucking hold your nose and dive in.
I just go right for it. Yeah, so she goes, well, that's not right. It's rude to call an adult an idiot. And I'm like, well, I mean, to be fair, I'm allowed to have opinions, and my opinion is that you are an idiot. And it's not like I said it to your face. I said it
that time
on the school bus away from you. And I would never tell you to your face that I think that you're an idiot.
Except for the last 2 times.
Right, exactly. But she's like, well, that's wrong, and you need to be punished for it. And I go, I'm not sure if you can punish me for something that I said on the school bus. And she said, well, regardless, you need to write 25 times, Mrs. is not an idiot. And I go, see, but, like, you're proving my opinion that you are with this punishment? So then she made me write it 50 times. And I said, let's just make it around 100, because it's not going to change the fact that I think you're an idiot. Yeah. So that's my example of it. And thinking about it today, God, at least 25 years later from when that all went down, I realized that she was just like probably insecure as a human being. and you have
being called
like
an idiot by a 10-year-old
calling her out. Like, and you know, but I think that was also an important moment in the path to Devon Decker. Like that moment where I realized people are just people. Teachers are no better than anyone else in this world.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think if I had learned that lesson there, that the event with the driveway would have happened. Like, you're just a person, right? I'm just upsetting a person. It doesn't matter that you're a teacher.
Yeah.
So it all connects, right? It all connects. And the reason why I tell this story is because this whole week, this past week, I have been dealing with memories of my past in strange, new, and exciting ways. And we talk a lot about nostalgia on this show. It's part of the philosophy of the Say Report is nostalgia, but I specifically want to talk about negative nostalgia in this week's episode.
Okay. Oh, man.
Before we jump into it, though, just to tie everything together, the teacher who was my law teacher, my senior year of high school, his wife was my 5th grade math teacher. And when I walked into that first classroom with him in senior year, he's like, I'm kind of excited to have you as a student because Barbara has been telling Devon Decker stories for 7 years. and I have to know if they're true.
Yeah, it's the teachers that have kind of heard of you that are always that you have to start questioning like who you are as a human if news has gotten this far.
Well, the thing is, he had been like vice principal in the school, and then he transitioned to like teaching these like civics classes, like real humanities driven courses. So I'm like, you need to have me as a student to know if that's true. Like, weren't you there when I quoted Mallrats while talking with service members? And I got in trouble for that. And you came to the classroom I was in and said, Devon, did you say, quote, Superman would shoot a load like a shotgun straight through her? I'm like, yeah, I did. And he's like, all right, you're not really in trouble because I don't know what you did wrong. But you were written up for it, and I needed to make it look like I did something. I'm like, all right, cool, thank you. This was worth it for me because you just said that to me, and you're like you're an administrator. Oh man, I'm so sorry to like do this, but I've been thinking about like these are happy memories. These are memories that I'm laughing about. Like time at the time, I was very upset that I had to write 100 times that she's not an idiot, and every time I wrote it, it was like, but you really are. I can't believe you're making me do this. What is this doing?
Yeah, what are you learning from this?
Yeah, like. No, every time I finished, you're an idiot. You've proven it again. These are happy memories, but I've had like sad, sort of wistful memories lately, and I think it all started watching Death Proof in my Quentin Tarantino rewatch.
Okay, all right.
So Death Proof originally comes out as part of Grindhouse on April 6th, 2007. 2007, the early part of 2007. I've said a lot that 2007 is my year at the movies, and that doesn't become really true until, well, not June 8th, so 5 days after, June 13th, 2007, where, like, a little dude who's a year younger than me invites me to go see the movies with him on Cheap Tuesday. And that little dude would grow into Sejohn Sarowick. At the time, he went
Sejohn
by
Sarowick,
Norville Roberts.
Yeah, yep. That was me.
He was a shaggy bloke. No, there was a divide for me. Like, I was going to movies in the beginning of 2007. I saw 300. I saw TMNT. I saw Grindhouse, and I saw them all with the same person. And then something happened. There was a fracturing. I'm not sure why this occurred, but there was a fracturing there. And I stopped seeing movies, and it just kind of ended cinema for me.
Yeah.
In this weird way. I'm guessing it was Spider-Man 3 that did it.
Oh,
if I had to blame something, like, I'm done with movies, thanks Spider-Man 3. Because I think that came out near the beginning of May. Because we were doing there was the One Act Festival.
Yeah, it was closing down it was the night that we closed down the One Act Festival, and I remember working my ass off to rip down walls as fast as possible so that me, Luke, Kevin, like there was like a group, Elise, like there was a group of 4 or 5 of us that were gonna pile into Luke's Corolla and fucking hightail it to Providence Place Mall to go to this movie for the midnight premiere. And I remember like it was either the night of the last night of the shows or the night before the last night, because there was a strike somewhere in that story, and I remember like it being part of that strike was us like talking about or thinking about Spider-Man.
What it was we had to strike the show that was in Jay's studio because for some ungodly reason they had put the second spring show in Jay, knowing that the One Act would be in there.
Right.
So you were striking that show, and I was there as the sound designer, like as soon as stuff was clear, installing my design. Mm-hmm. And all of us went to go see the midnight premiere of that film. And you know, these are stories. These are the things. I ended up sleeping on campus that night on like a couch in the lobby of the Fine Arts Center because it was easier, so I could be there the next day. Mm-hmm. For just a day-long tech and dress, because they treated us like slaves in the theater program at our university.
When I was teaching Theater 100, I would always work a couch into one of the shows, so that I would have a couch in the back of the Theater 100 setup finals, so that I could sleep there overnight. Because we'd be doing Theater 100 shows until 11 o'clock one night, and then at 7 o'clock in the morning, the next group was coming in to set up for their 8 o'clock show. So I was like, well, if I'm going to be here till 11, and it's probably going to be 1 because I'm going to end up doing all of the work after all of the students leave, and then I have to be back here for 7, and I have to be here before 7 because that's when the students show up, I'm not going to bother driving back to my house. Like, I'm not going to drive to Gansett for the 30 minutes home. I'm just going to sleep in Jay's studio for the night. And I did that, like, every year.
I really love when we tell these stories, and I'm reminded why we do a podcast together. Because we're like the same person on a lot of different levels, except you know you didn't do any of the things I did in elementary school. You got in trouble for real things, as you said, things that I don't think you'd want to put to digital tape, Sejohn, because there might still be open warrants.
Chipped tooth, and it started in 4th grade.
But yeah, so Grindhouse is a film that I saw, and Grindhouse is awesome. I would, even having just rewatched Death Proof, I would watch Grindhouse as the full 3.5 hour experience right now. It bums me out that it's not available anywhere in that format.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand why not.
But yeah, but because we're doing the Quentin Tarantino watch through again, and because he considers it one of his movies, even though Quentin Tarantino has gone on record as this is my worst film. Not a bad movie, just the worst movie that I've made.
Right.
And I get that. I actually think that's a really cool distinction that he makes. But watching Death Proof immediately brought me back to that time in my life. And I didn't have the happiest memories from that time in my life. I was reminded of the types of discussions I would have, and specifically the people I would be having these discussions with regarding cinema, that make me so happy that I found you. Because at the end of the day, even if we don't like something, we try to find that silver lining.
Yeah, well, and it's not even like we try. Like, there's always something entertaining to talk about with a thing. No matter how much we may dislike a project of some kind, there's always something worth, like, having a drink and shooting the shit about it, right? And I mean, like, that's about to be real obvious here in the coming weeks when we have to get deep and dark into some Zack Snyder Justice League stuff. And, but like, there's always going to be a reason to enjoy a film, even if it's not the best movie you've ever seen, for sure.
Right. And that is something that I've believed, and finding you really, like, it was nice to find someone else who attended and ascribed to that belief system. Because the people I was talking about with movies before, if you didn't like something and they did like it, you were instantly excommunicated from the friend group, but still, like, kept around so they could, like, throw punches at you for your opinion. And I think you know this group of people. I don't think we need to name them, right? But
but I think the more important thing is that everybody knows this group. Everybody has
that group, right?
Yeah, there's. I mean, it's essentially like the popular kids that never. You know what I mean? Like, they left high school and they still act like the popular kids, not realizing that social structure doesn't exist outside of the halls of high school, you know?
Well, I think that, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call this group the popular kids, but I think they were the most popular at the D&D club table.
Well, yeah.
And that's being disparaging. That's one of the other reasons I'm not going to name drop these people. But, like, it's just like I was instantly brought to that, and discussions that we had about Death Proof, and the things that I said that, like, it's not really good. It's kind of gratuitous. And it's interesting to talk about it being gratuitous and, like, self-effacing and, like, you know, self-gratification on the part of Quentin Tarantino, as we're about to discuss Little Nicky in 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Which I never really felt that way about Little Nicky, the same way I feel about something like Death Proof. And it's something that, like, I still felt that, even watching it now, and having watched all the movies that Quentin Tarantino's like, oh yeah, remember that? I'm so proud of that.
Yeah.
In that particular film. I don't know. I liked Death Proof. It was fun to watch. It's hard to watch. Now, like, it's the hardest of those movies where the Weinstein's names show up when you think about just how exploitive it is of women.
Well, yeah, and very specifically, this is you just finished Kill Bill, right?
Yeah, so Kill Bill is the one prior to it. Yeah.
So this is the one where, I mean, Kill Bill is the film in which Quentin Tarantino was given the opportunity to finally break away from Weinstein, and we now know, like, so wholeheartedly, like chose the wrong side in that fight, to the point where, like, Uma Thurman leaves cinema, like, she leaves acting. like she talks about her experiences on Kill Bill and how she had trusted so much in Quentin at the beginning of that series, and then at the end of it was so, like, jaded by her experience on that movie that she just basically never goes back to film after that. And if she does, it's not it's very, she's very careful going forward, let's put it that way, right? But yeah, that's something that comes out of in all of the Weinstein stuff, is like all of these people saying, like, how can you work with this guy? How can you work with this guy? And you start to hear these stories about how, like, yeah, well, you know, I did say to this director that this was going on, and this is the way that they behaved in these moments. And, like, notoriously, like, Kill Bill is the one where we learn that Tarantino, like, screamed at her for, like, a stunt that she didn't want to do, and he basically was like, do I have to bring Weinstein in on this? And she was so, like, no, that she ends up just doing the stunt and almost dies. Like, the car crashes and she almost gets killed making that movie. And so, knowing all of that now, and then going from that into Death Proof, which features Zoe Bell, Uma Thurman's longtime stunt double for all of Tarantino's work, and he, like, it almost feels like the reason that Zoe is put in this movie, and this is not fair to her because she's a phenomenal stunt actress, and that's really the reason that she's in it. But, like, knowing the ways in which he'd had to deal with Uma on Kill Bill, and the ways in which he handled that, to then basically just be like, I'm going to take this Uma Thurman stand-in and just treat her the way I want for an hour and a half, is gross.
Yeah. And then it's also Rose McGowan's in both of those. And
Hmm.
when we now know that it was Scream where she first like felt uncomfortable with the Weinsteins, and then
Yep.
she comes up and plays Cherry and Pam in both of these films.
Right.
Like, it was weird. It was a weird sort of time, and it brought me back to like just unhappy thoughts and feelings. And I don't know, like I wanted to explore the idea of nostalgia as we view it is sort of a happy feeling. It's a warm sweater. You know, like Christmas sweater is something that you've used in the past to personify nostalgia.
Yeah.
It's a knitted quilt blanket. It's the blanket from Roseanne's couch, which like
Yeah.
now that's full of problematic things, but you know, it is. It's comforting. Nostalgia is generally comforting. And watching Death Proof, it brought me to this uneasy nostalgic feeling that
Yeah.
I didn't even know was associated with the film until I was face to face with it. And
Yeah, man. I mean, like, it's an odd point in cinema. It's an odd point in our lives. It's an odd point in the artist's creative process. Like it kind of it's kind of a pivot point for a lot of things in a way that like it doesn't deserve to be. Like, it's not fair to the movie to like lay all of this stuff on it. But as we've said 1,000 times, like, you don't just watch a movie in a vacuum. So like, yeah, it's unfortunate, I think, for that film that it carries so much baggage that it never intends to.
right. I don't know. It's just and then the last one is, you know, working at Hollywood Video when it came out and having to clear a whole section of the wall to fill with copies of Death Proof. And then next to it Planet Terror. And then
Mhm.
also like having to fight tooth and nail with corporate about you need to put them next to each other. You need them to be a centralized thing, and you call it Grindhouse on the label so that it's Grindhouse Planet Terror and Grindhouse Death Proof so that people see them together, because the reason why you have a full wall of them is because people are going to rent both of them at the same time.
Right.
You can't separate them.
Yeah, and part of that is is on Miramax, right?
Right,
Like
exactly. Yeah.
why does that why it never came out as a double feature film to begin with? Like, if you had told me years down the line that Walmart was going to have $5 copies of each separate in their $5 bin, like, yeah, sure,
Makes
like
perfect
that,
sense.
whatever. But like the idea that they did not, when they first drop as a double feature, like, is insane to me, because that was like the point of both of those together. We've talked a few times on this show about how the choices that Tarantino makes in Death Proof kind of don't make any sense, but they at least make more sense within the context of being held up against Planet Terror, where like the missing reel joke, right? Like, and how for Tarantino it's a straight up joke, and that feels like he kind of like did as an afterthought, because there literally is a film scene that he just removed, and it's not even a full scene, it's like pieces of. Whereas like with Rodriguez, it feels like there's like 20 minutes of the movie that you missed, and like it doesn't exist anywhere. It's written that way. It is what it is. And like, and so a lot of what goes on in Death Proof feels kind of just like, as you said, like gratuitous, but not just gratuitous, but also what's the word I'm looking for? It just, they come out of nowhere, right? There's no conceptual reason for a lot of the weirdness of Death Proof, without the understanding that it is this satirical look at grindhouse cinema.
Exactly. And also, if we want to go like just really, if I had to guess why those films were released separately to the home market, I'd have to put it on Quentin Tarantino for the fact that he had other stuff he wanted to include in that film.
Mm,
And he wouldn't have been able to do that if it were packaged and sold as Grindhouse.
yeah.
It needs to be sold as Death Proof so that you can see the full lap dance scene, and you can have that weird black and white scene, which is the most gratuitous moment of the film. Like,
Yeah.
there have been some callbacks prior to that, but all of the big callbacks happen during that black and white sequence that is so out of context. And
Yeah.
also, it's not until that release that we had it confirmed that this was all happening in real time, that this wasn't like Pulp Fiction or that, where like narrative is being shifted, because it's only in the home release of Death Proof that we're told that we're now in Lebanon, Tennessee, and it's 14 months later.
Right.
Because like the thing that really struck me was the discussions about, I think the second part where he gets his ass kicked happens first. And those weird discussions that I had with people where I'm like, no, because he dies at the end of it. Like, she straight up kills him. She curb stomps his head. And they're like, no. Like, that's just like, that's why he hates women so much and what he does in the first. I'm like, no, that it can't be that. Well, until it's proven that it is. And like, that's why I got the script. So I could be like, see, it takes place afterwards. Well, it doesn't say it in the movie. No, it doesn't say it in the movie, but come on.
Yeah, no. Also, oh my God.
Like, yeah.
He very clearly has an issue with women when he already meets this group of women that happen in the second half of that film.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, those are the moments that I remembered, like these, like bashing my head against the wall to like try to get people to understand. I'm like, I'd be all about having this discussion with you. Like, it'd be a very interesting discussion to have if we didn't have proof that this is what happened.
Yeah, weird. It's also like the movie, it becomes one of those things where it's also a time when everybody starts talking about like Tarantino as both a niche artist but also one of the biggest directors of our, you know what I mean, like of our time. People still talk, like, it's the moment when people have to come to terms with the fact that Tarantino movies are actually well known, beloved, and like he's won numerous Oscars at this point. He has been touted as a blockbuster director at this point, right? Like you can't talk about him as the indie guy anymore. You know, he gets away with a lot of stuff early in his career for being kind of like the dangerous indie director. You know, I think about a lot of the stuff that him and Rodriguez like pulled with the unions on From Dusk Till Dawn and shit like that, and he never would have gotten away with it in 2007. You know what I mean? Like, so I think by that point, that's the other thing, is that you have a lot of people that are trying to still claim him as this like artiste director that only they truly understand, and you're just like, no, it's pretty straightforward stuff. Actually, at this point, we have 6-7 movies that we can really look back on of his and really talk about how he works, and I can point out to you all the reasons why, knowing how Quentin Tarantino works, what you're saying doesn't actually work, right? And at that point, then you turn into the asshole. Right,
exactly. You become the well actually guy.
Yeah.
And it was this weird, like, clinging to, it was indie music syndrome, but with like a cinema, with cinema, in this way that I don't think we had ever experienced before. Like, and it's so strange when you think of 2007 as that last year before Marvel comes onto the scene and literally changes film and cinema forever. Like, I don't know. It's just so, it's so weird to me. And it brought me to such a weird, dark place of what cinema was during my lifetime. And I didn't love it. I didn't love it at all. And I wanted to explore it here. So I'm sorry for taking you there, Siege. I don't know. I know you didn't watch Death Proof recently, but yeah.
Oh man, I watched Jackie Chan's First Strike this weekend.
Well, there you go.
I'm in a whole other weird place with cinema right now.
I watched.
They take like 10 minutes out of the beginning of that movie and they act as if nothing happened. It is clear that they cut like a good chunk of the exposition of that film out so that they can get more of Jackie Chan like riding on a snowmobile with a seal on his head. Like they clearly cut out like 10 minutes of film, and they act as if it is just part of the movie.
Yeah, I mean that's a big problem with those type of films anyway. Foreign films coming over to here, or like, I don't even know, like that. I don't know. You know what is also doing this for me is I read a whole big thing about how China and trying to appeal to the Chinese market is causing that censorship of cinema now.
Yeah.
So like glancing back and seeing just like how that started back then in things, it's all nuts. And also, I mean, the big driving force is a very special episode of the Say Report is releasing this week on Thursday, only available through podcast services. And we're looking at the Mighty Ducks and how I love the Mighty Ducks. I'm very excited to discuss the Mighty Ducks, but I also know that there's some like weirdness connected to that film for me.
Oh man. Okay.
So like, I guess I'm just preparing myself for it. I wasn't ready for it. And then also, right, like we said that we have to talk about Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury. And playing through Super Mario 3D World, I was brought back to 2014. I think that one came out originally. And like when the Wii U was the new hotness and where I was in my life playing that game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a great game, though. I'm very happy I got to play through Super Mario 3D World.
I'm happy that I got to play through Super Mario 3D World on a system where I am much more comfortable and pleased with like the controls and the look of things.
It is, I mean, as a two-person game, right? As a co-op game, 2, 3, 4 people, it feels so much nicer on the Switch. And honestly, there is one level. And that's in the main game. I haven't done all the special levels or anything like that. I unlocked Rosalina. That's as far as I got because I wanted to be able to play through as Rosalina. But there's only one level really where the touch whatever of the game is awkward.
Well, and what's really cool about it is this is something that was true on the Wii U too, but feels a little bit easier here, and is that you can still have just one person that really kind of is in charge of that. But on this, you can actually see their cursor and kind of see what they're up to. So no bullshit of being like, hey, you didn't open that thing for me and I fell. And they could be like, I tried. No, you didn't. I saw your cursor on the other side of the screen. You were over there like poking coins. Like, don't lie to me. So it kind of adds to the element of that so it's but you're right. It's only like one. I think there might be 2 or 3 altogether because I've played through all the way to is it Hat World or whatever whatever the silly ones are after Star and stuff like that.
Star, Flower,
right?
And then it's like Earth World. Like,
yeah, it's really weird. It's but yeah. So there's only a few of them that really depend on those touch controls, and the ways in which they've implemented them in this game, it feels like it's no different than like the Shadow World, which only really shows up once, right? Or the Light World, where like if the lights are on you, the bombs are coming. Like those are mechanics that don't show up more than once or twice, and when they do, it's a nice treat. It feels like that more. Whereas with the Wii U, the touch controls were important for that one level, but they were there all the time. Right. Exactly. So there was like weird shit that would happen if somebody like bumped the thing the wrong way or decided they were getting bored and started fucking around in a way that the touch controls are not really present or don't need to be present all the time now.
Yeah, it's good. And I like that. But I did promise you that we would talk about Bowser's Fury.
Yeah.
And even though Bowser's Fury, and even though I finished the game on Saturday and then was busy. I didn't finish the game until Sunday night. I finished it yesterday. And I'm like, that means that I have to do today, and I have to find spare time to beat Bowser's Fury. And I woke up early, and as soon as I got home, I did it, and I was able to complete Bowser's Fury. Not 100%, but I have seen the end, right? Which is 50 shines, which is fair. I was like getting a little nervous that it might be more than that as I neared the 50th shine. And then once you get 47 shines and it's like, nah, evil Bowser's here the whole friggin' time. Good luck.
Yeah.
Getting those last 3 that you need to fight him.
I lucked out, and like there was definitely one that I had to do up on like the magma tower, but there were 2 left over in the ice skating world that like, I say lucked out, but the reason I hadn't done them is because they were pissing me off.
Was it the blue coins? Because the blue coins was the last one I did before I fought Bowser.
Blue coin, yeah, and it is the only one in the entire Bowser's Fury that I felt was like bad. Like, just there's no other word for it. It is more difficult than it needs to be. Nothing else is that difficult. And then on top of that, it's not a it's not clear what you're doing wrong every
Dude,
time.
those 5 blue coins right before the first tunnel that are like just off to the side.
Yeah.
Why would you think that? What you
Yeah.
can see the blue coins in front of you. Why would you think I need to divert from the clear path that you're showing me and look for 5 missing coins? Like, if there was a counter, that would help, but there isn't.
Yeah. I couldn't do that one on my own. That was the only one in my entire personal run where I had to have somebody hop on with me and play Bowser Jr. And I was basically like, look, you just got to back me up. If I miss anything, you got to go for it ASAP. And and that made it playable. It was but that's the other thing, right? Is it's the only shine that entire game where I felt like, oh, there needs to be a second person here. It's not impossible with one person, but it's so difficult that it's no longer fun. And that's the only time. That's the only time out of 100 different challenges. That was the only one.
Well, let me tell you how I did it. I killed the skate to get the second section of coins and just ran. And I'm like, and it was tight. But then the last section in the skate again, also tight. So it's like, but I want this to be my 50th shine because it empties out right at a Gigabell. So I'll be ready to go. Like, I'll do this a bunch of times. But it's good. It's enjoyable. And Bowser's Fury, you had said, is what should be selling this game.
Yeah.
And it is. And I think the only unfortunate thing about it from where I'm sitting with the game is that's not the type of game I enjoy.
I mean, yeah, I feel like it's a really it's really easy to compare it to Mario Odyssey, right? It's really easy to look at it and say that. Although somebody pointed out that if you do that, then you have to admit that it is the size of 3 different Mario Odyssey worlds in one. Like, it really is.
Right.
Number of cat shines, that's out the fucking window, because at this point I think Nintendo's put like 400 stars in every level in Mario Odyssey. But that's like a whole other conversation. But as far as like actual landmass, what to do, differences in terrain and stuff like that, it outpaces Mario Odyssey in all of that aspect. But I think that it is gameplay wise, mentality, like meta game wise, a really nice in between 3D World and Mario Odyssey. Yeah, and I can definitely see that if you didn't love, we've talked a lot about how Mario Odyssey is just not the kind of Mario game that either of us wants to play. I think what this did for me really well is the fact that it is only 100 shines. It is not 400, and they're not nonsense. They tell you exactly what the next shine is on every island. And yeah, there's 3 or 4 quote unquote hidden ones. Like, I don't know what other word there is for them because there's not really clues for them, but they're also super easy to figure out. Like, the second you look around at anything to do with Plessy, you're just like, oh, well, this says Lower Lake. And so obviously that means there's an Upper Lake one. This means there's a Wasteland one. This means so like you instantly go around and find all the Plessy ones. Or like there's a point in which you have to start looking for Captain Toad, and like it doesn't say to you like, hey, find every Captain Toad character. But it's pretty clear that like there was one on this island. I'm gonna go look on all the rest of them. Like, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where this is the first Mario game in a long time, probably since Mario Sunshine, where I felt like I might actually know what I'm fucking doing. Like, Mario Galaxy, I've always respected what it was, and I've always really enjoyed a lot of the like weirdness with gravity and camera work and stuff in it. But it was really kind of a moment for me where I realized I was not good at Mario games anymore. And since then, it's been really kind of a thing. Like, I really enjoyed Mario Odyssey, and I gushed about it, but I had a lot of issues with it. And a lot of those issues had to do with the fact that, like, I never felt like I was getting good at Mario Odyssey. And the same goes for 3D World. Like, I really enjoy 3D World, and I've played the fuck out of it, and it's really fun with friends because then I don't have to worry so much about the fact that I'm not that good at it. Mario, the Bowser's Fury add-on is the first time that I have been running around as Mario, doing Mario things, putting on suits and solving problems, climbing walls and jumping and backflipping and all of that crap. And I was just like, hell yeah, look at me be Mario. It's a power trip for me, like, that entire thing. And then they balance that by like, and as soon as you start to really feel good, like, it has this phenomenal ending, even more than what you saw at 50. There's a little bit more that happens when you finally hit hit the 100, and I won't spoil that for you because it's just like smile on your face glee when it happened for me. Um, but with all of that, like it just felt good every step of the way. I was like, yeah, like look at me rock through all these shines. Look at me like kick the shit out of Bowser 5 times this game. Look at me like knock out all of these like boss battles and platforming puzzles. And then it ended, and I felt good about myself, and I still feel good about myself.
Cool. That's awesome. I think where I'm coming from it is, what I liked about Mario Odyssey was the move set. And the fact that the moveset in Bowser's Fury is just the like copy pasted from 3D World is not surprising, but it was kind of disappointing because there's so much where your hands are tied, like you don't get the double jump because there's more of a focus on suits giving you extra abilities.
You do get the slam jump though.
Yes, and I love the slam jump.
Yeah,
gotta love the slam jump.
That every time I thought, "Fuck, I really wish I had the double jump here," I was reminded that I actually had the slam jump, and I was like, "Oh, all right, like this is."
There are things that do it, but it's just like there's just a natural feeling to double jumping as Mario.
Oh yeah,
where like going back to 64, and then like I had missed this. I understand that I missed this in other 3D games, so just feeling that way. But then, you know, it's the fact that like open world games, because they're open world, and Bowser's Fury feels like the most open world of any Mario game that's ever existed, really gave me like Breath of the Wild feelings, which, I mean, how does that sound? That like that's what I have as a baseline for an open world game is Breath of the Wild. That tells you about my experiences with video games. And I don't really play the open world stuff. But because in an open world setting, you can go anywhere, every area feels the same once you get to that certain point. Does that make sense? Do I sound like a raving lunatic?
Kind of, I mean, like I kind of agree. Like I feel like this does such a good job though of like being like, this is the tower climbing area, this is the ice skating area, this is the platforming area. You know what I mean? Like I feel like each area highlights a different style of Mario level really well. You know what I mean? So like if you feel like each of these worlds feels really kind of similar and bland to you, I got news for you then. Like that's what every Mario world feels kind of, you know what I mean? like yeah, so like I only disagree in so much that like I feel like it does a good job emulating what it's setting out to emulate. In a lot of ways it's the same thing I have to say about the moveset is like I get like really wanting that really nice, like comfortable, powerful feeling of Mario Odyssey. Like you feel like you can do anything as Mario, which makes sense because the whole point of that game is like you can go anywhere, you can do anything, you could become anybody. Like that whole feeling of freedom is really important to that game. I feel like if that was the case here, it wouldn't have been Mario 3D World's Bowser's Fury. You know what I mean?
Right. And like I said, I wasn't surprised. It was just that tinge of disappointment. And I'm not talking about the locations feel the same. What I'm talking about is the tasks all feel the same.
Yes.
And that's where I'm talking about. Because each level, you have that Ubisoft level climb the tower, right? It really did feel like Radio Towers by the end, where every first mission is light the lighthouse.
Oh, it's the Breath of the, I mean, like going back to Breath of the Wild, you have to find the tower in order to illuminate the area on your map, and then from the tower you can see all these different things. Yeah, for sure.
That you could do. So like that whole thing, and I'm like, okay, so even if you're making an open world with Mario, you need to have that tower climb element. And I'm like, I wasn't prepared for that. And then each one, and this one makes sense because this has been there since 64, it's find the 5 pieces of the shine, right?
Right.
So that's 2 that are the same in everything. And then you either get a blue coin challenge or you get a key challenge.
Yeah.
Like
I would say, honestly, you get the key challenge almost every time. Like the blue coin one feels like it shows up in maybe 3 or 4 out of the 7 areas, whereas like the key one I feel like almost shows up everywhere except for the Colosseum. I think is the only place it doesn't show up.
Oh, that's crazy because I only did 2 key challenges and I feel like I did 4 blue coin challenges. So
Maybe I'm misremembering,
no,
but
that's completely fine. It's just like, but it all depends on how you find it, right? Because that's open world. But like,
yeah.
so you have, you know that you're gonna have the light the lighthouse, collect the pieces, oh, blow up the fury blocks, right? So those are 3 that are the same for every location. Are those
sure.
3, and then the 4th one is either, you know, blue coins or find a key and bring it back to the shine that's locked up. And then the 5th one is the one that's unique to the area.
Yeah.
And like, and that's the thing. So when you have these areas, right, now I feel like it's like 10 maybe separate areas. I feel like 7 is just like a scotch too small, right? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Everything kind of felt the same in that, like, oh, I'm in a new area. I didn't even realize it.
Yeah, well, so there's 3 right off the bat that you open up, and then you open up 2 more, so that's 5, and then you open up 3 more when the whole world opens up.
Yep.
Yeah, so probably 10 when all is said and done, because you also open up a smaller area in the beginning. Yeah, so probably about 10 different areas altogether.
Yeah. So, and then no version of that, but you have 10 areas, so that's 50 through there because it's 5 cat shines per area, and then just like 50 that are out in the world somewhere, and I'm fine with that. That's a delightful breakdown of how the game works, but it just speaks that it speaks to my issue with it, where you have like those things that are sort of unique to each area, but like that's it.
Well, I'll be curious to see how you feel about when you get back into it, because like I don't think you even unlock like the Plessy stuff. Did you do any of the find my kittens goals and things like that?
And I was actually surprised near the end where I'm like, oh, there's a find my kitten here, because I didn't realize it, but there was a angry mama cat attacking me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, well, if there's an angry mama cat, then I got to find her baby somewhere.
Yeah. So I think that one of the things that like really, I think that Nintendo is doing that Nintendo thing where they latch onto a concept and grab all the wrong ideas from it, right? Like they do this all the time. Look at their whole online service. And I think that one of the things that Bowser's Fury does is because it is so small, it actually kind of like it the things that they've latched onto are super glaring. So like every single one of those goals that you talk about, really the points of those kinds of goals, and they show up in all different open world games, is to force you to really explore the world, right? Rather than just do like one thing through the island 1,000 times. You know, you have to go looking around for the 5 shine pieces, so it forces you to different areas. To look for the fury blocks, you have to figure out exactly where they are, and they're usually someplace awkward, like around the outside or on the back end underneath or some nonsense that you have to then get him to like show up and blow up. So they like, it forces you to really kind of explore and see their world. And so I feel like that is like their mindset is we really want people to experience each one of these islands in all of these different ways. We need a reason for them to go here, we need a reason for them to go there, we need a reason for them to try this, to do that. And like it's in theory, it's this great thing that's going to force you all over the place, that's really going to take the world in and experience all of the funny stuff and beautiful artwork and everything that goes on. You know, how many different cats can you see on your way to the next shine? Like, let's see how many cats we can make them walk by. And like there's a lot to be said about doing that. The problem is that what other games do and is that they dress up the fetch quest under different veneers. It doesn't feel like it's the same thing 6 times in a row, despite the fact that 6 times in a row I'm doing the same thing. You know, like Nintendo hasn't figured out that the thing that people like about the open world games isn't just the exploring the world. It's also like every area needs to feel unique in that world. It's not just like, look how big this landmass is. It's also like, and within that landmass, here's all the different things you can do with it.
Yeah, it's how you interact with the landmass, which is just the thing. And like there were moments, like the Colosseum level was cool to me, because each time you went back to fight, you had to climb to a different height. and it
Right.
changed the way that like that was the thing that really stuck out to me as like just beautiful. And I liked that last section where you did the one section and then that made you come back to a central nexus point and you could do the next section, which would bring open the third. Like that was cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like the way that you interacted with, even though you open up 3 new worlds, they sort of like forced you and focused you to do them in a specific order that was interesting. But then there were other times where I'm like, oh, I'm still in the ice world. And then I'm like, oh no, it's a different ice world because I collected a shard and it didn't count towards the other 5 shards I was collecting.
Yeah, and like the weird ways in which it forces you to not stay in one place, because like if you collect a shine, it doesn't automatically tell you what the next thing
Yeah,
to do
exactly.
is. And
Like,
it doesn't, and part of that is because they need to reset the world. They need you to leave so that they can load in a bunch of crap when you're not looking. And so like they need you to go to the next island really quick and then come back later. And it can even be just a matter of just like jumping to a Gigabell and then turning around and suddenly, oh, the Coliseum's another level higher, or or like, oh, that key wasn't there in a cage 2 seconds ago. Like, what's going on? Yeah, there's definitely some weirdness in the ways in which they want you to go around that world and when they want you to go around that world, the things that they want you to complete kind of first. Because like I'll be honest, like when it came down to collecting the shine bits, because I figured out really quick that you could direct Bowser Jr. to just go wherever you pointed him to, like it was nothing to collect shine bits. So I'd be out there doing in the middle of my climb the tower first task, but I'd also get that one every time too. So like it was like a guaranteed like 2 shines my first climb every time, you know? And then once I figured out that you had to go looking for like certain things like cats or Captain Toad characters or things like that, like it was really easy for me to include that in my going through and doing other stuff because I knew it was going to be one of the things that was, you know what I mean? Like I knew it was going to be, it was going to come up eventually and I could do them both at once. So it also like, it allowed me to be collecting shines like 5 a run. Like I jumped down, I jumped in the game for 20 minutes between like making dinner and waiting for it to come out of the oven. And like, I could knock out like a fifth of that game. Like it is, yeah, it can be disappointing if you think about it in like the grand scheme of things, how similar so much of what goes on in that game is. But again, I come back to like, you're just talking like Mario to me, man. Like every game, every level is get to the end and get to the goalpost, and it's fun when they do something weird and interesting, like having the touchscreen stuff or having the shadow stuff, or I just played the one the other day where the goalpost is right there, but then it runs away from you,
yeah.
and you can end it at any time by catching up to it if you want. But if you really want to get like everything in the level, you actually kind of have to let it keep running for a bit, and like that's super fun. But it's fun because of how different it is than a normal Mario level.
I think that it's just one of those things where I am driven to complete a game 100%. And the reason why open world games become difficult for me is when it's like, all right, so I need to liberate this base camp. And it's just like liberating every other base camp that I've liberated. Or I need to climb this. It's like, it's when it becomes the same with the extracurricular activities in the game. So then when I'm playing this game and, 3 hours and I'm to the halfway point and getting the CNN screen and I'm like, wow, I really wish that in that time I hadn't realized how much is the same. Like, I wish that it had been hidden better. I don't know. Like, but it just reminded me.
If they had front loaded the islands with more of the unique challenges rather than save them for usually challenge like 3 or 4,
Yeah.
Then I think you're right. But that being said, then you would have felt really weird going back into that game. It almost feels like it's kind of a treat, like after you've completed that game the first time, going back into that world and seeing how different things actually can be all of a sudden.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that. And that's the thing. I'm excited to continue playing and to get all 100 cat shines. It's just, I noticed that same feeling where I had with Breath of the Wild, where like, I like the parts of this that are Zelda, just like I like the parts of Bowser's Fury that are Mario. The stuff that is discouraging is the parts that are open world game.
Yeah.
That, and it's, I don't know. But again, if this is how they're going to do their re-releases going forward, and we've had a Nintendo Direct and we know that it's not, We know that it's not that.
Yeah.
Because we can talk about Skyward Sword HD. I would be very happy. I'd be happy if you get this game that you know, and we add something that is new and different, and also feels very of the time,
Yeah.
right? I don't know, like and Skyward Sword HD is coming, and I'm kind of excited to play it on a controller, but also like, it's an old game at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my thing is I never played it when it first came out. It was such a misery, like for a lot of the people that I knew that bought it, and I tried it once because somebody was like, "This is terrible. You want to try it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yep, sure enough. Hate this motion control nonsense." So like so I never really got into it. So like in a weird way, it doesn't matter that it's a re-release for me because I didn't play it the first time, and I think that is like that is a huge factor for a lot of this stuff that even you and I are guilty of really not considering how much that actually drives this. Is that the reason that this stuff gets re-released and the reason that it does gangbusters when it does is that there is a group of people built in to play it now, like younger siblings or even like children, like, you know what I mean, like Super Mario 3D World getting re-released. I've heard a lot of people talking about how this is their first time playing it because they didn't own the
No one
Wii
owned
U.
the Wii U, and
Exactly.
this is one of the best Super Mario Brothers games. I will say that. I'll go on record that Super Mario 3D World is probably one of the best Super Mario games, and nobody had gotten a chance to play it.
Right.
Like, even people who had a Wii U, it came out so late in the cycle of the system that people weren't buying it on release date.
Yeah, yeah.
If they were buying it at all. So I am happy that people get to play it. And this is a game that I've been waiting. When it was Mario Kart 8 is getting a deluxe edition on the Switch, I'm like, wake me up when it's Super Mario 3D World.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this game, I don't pre-order games. I pre-ordered this game.
Yeah.
And I got way more than I bargained for. And I'm probably actually going to finish it this time with all 383 stars. Which is just such a weird number.
Yeah, it's a really weird number, but I'm up to 290 and that's without trying. Like I haven't said to myself once like we got to make sure to collect all the stars this time. Like that hasn't happened yet. I've just been playing through and I've gotten up to that and I'm legitimately feeling good about that. Like
it's such a product of Super Mario Galaxy 2 because Super Mario Galaxy 2 is where they introduced the green stars like that. Taking the 3 big gold coins from the new Super Mario Brothers style of gaming and bringing it into the 3D space. And it did not work for me in Galaxy 2 because it wasn't until the end of the game that they were put into the levels.
Right.
Where in 3D World, I love it. I love looking for them. Like it makes me, that exploration aspect that you talked about with like that's what is supposed to drive an open world game is I want to explore everything to find everything. That happens in 3D World because I'm like, well, you want me to go left, but I can still kind of go forward. There's probably something there.
Climb every wall, wall. Well, yeah, for sure. And it also it adds an element to the multiplayer that makes it unreal. Like the multiplayer in Super Mario 3D World is unlike any other competitive co-op anything I've ever played. I've never had a smile on my face while being so frustrated and like I said earlier, like Mario games hit a sore spot for me because I enjoy them so much. The fact that I am not like superb at them hurts, right? It alleviates that. It is like the multiplayer in Super Mario 3D World is the salve that I needed for my feelings about not being great at Mario games because there's 3 other people there to pick up the slack. So when I can't get to that green star, somebody else surely can. But on top of that, it gives me an excuse. Or I was like, yeah, I was trying to get to the stamp, but then you slammed down on the head. It's all your fault. I didn't make it. Like, you know what I mean? Like it puts you into this perfect spot of just feeling like you are helping. Sometimes, maybe not all the time, but you're pulling your weight, right? And it's amazing how even in a competitive style, it makes you feel still like good about like your abilities.
I do wish you could shut off the ranking at the end. I think if it was my one critique of the game, is that has caused more issues than it should in this household. I have no issue saying that. Is like, wow, that felt really good. It felt like everybody contributed, and then we get to the records page, and one of us got 40,000 points, and one of us got 1,800 points.
Well, there's a real easy way to figure that out, Dev. When each star costs 4,000, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no,
like,
I know, but
you can do that math.
I understand, but I just wish it was like you could skip that screen. I wish it were just an option, just to like shut it off. And that's it. Like, that's the one thing. I mean, my favorite thing is when someone does jump off someone's head and kill them, and holy hell, and all the expletives fly towards me for doing that. And then the next level, trying to throw boomerangs, I'm picked up and just yeeted into a lava pit. And, I have the grace now. I didn't have it when I was younger, but I have it now as an adult to look at them and say, maybe you don't get mad at me because you are also capable of making mistakes.
Oh, man.
All right. We need to talk about the Xbox Series X.
Okay.
And that was not a good segue. But I loved it. And if I'm going to talk about the Xbox Series X, the place where I want to start is River City Girls, because I've now beaten it on 5 different consoles, right? Yeah. 5 different platforms.
Awesome.
And let me tell you, the Xbox Series X has the most comfortable D-pad. I didn't think that would be what I'd be saying here on the SARE report today, but it really does.
Nice.
Coming on the heels of the Xbox One D-pad, which is garbage, because
which is a huge surprise, because the Xbox controller was like the gold standard for controllers, to the point where they sell more controllers than they do consoles now, because of the ability to use them everywhere.
Exactly. But the Xbox One made the D-pad like a cross, and it was just it felt awkward to use. And I'm glad that someone said, this feels awkward to use, we need to fix it. And that they overcorrected, but in all the best ways possible.
Nice.
Because it's just a concave circle, but it's a circle, and and you can feel when you press the directions. It's not like the Steam controller,
I was gonna say,
where I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, all right, okay.
Yeah, it's great. I honestly love it. I played Cyber Shadow on it, and I'm like, I think this is a really good D-pad, but I'll need to play River City Girls to confirm. So we got a second one. They released a red one, and I'm like, well, I have to buy a red controller, because for some reason that's my video game color, right? Like, what up, Devon Decker, red controller guy. And River City Girls is on Game Pass, so I didn't have to buy it again, which is a bonus. Not that I wouldn't have not bought it again. I've bought it so many times. I may have bought River City Girls more times than I've bought Shovel Knight. And that's incredible to think of.
Man.
Sorry, just out of body experience with it. And we played through it, Dale and I. We did it co-op because I've done it single player. And it's just not as much fun single player. We did a co-op. We beat it in 2 hours, watching the story, because we felt like, let's watch the story. We haven't done that since the first time we played the game. And, let's be reminded of what actually happens in this particular game. It was the first time that we played it without getting a game over, which is saying something. I don't think it's because of the system. I think it's because we've played the game just so many times now at this point. But so it passed the River City Girls test.
Okay.
Which is not a thing, but it's a thing for me, right? And that's sort of what matters. But then, this month, February, kind of like stealth, they released the first next-gen Xbox game.
Yeah.
to like little fanfare and almost no applause.
Yeah.
And that's The Medium.
Right. Oh man, I forgot about this game.
I forgot about it, and I've had access to it for almost a month, right? Because I opened it on the 1st of February. Yeah. So, and like someone was talking about it, and they're like, this is the first game built for the next generation of Xbox consoles.
And not the last, right? There's
Right.
no like toned down version.
Right. It is purely next gen Microsoft gaming.
Mm-hmm.
So it's included in Game Pass because Game Pass is this crazy good deal. We didn't talk about Stadia and the fact that it's pretty much dead, right? When you close down your game development studio in-house for your system's pretty much dead.
I don't know. I think that they realized that they were doing just fine having other people make games that they could just upload versions of. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that it's dead so much as I don't think that it's going to become the Xbox killer that everybody kept talking about it being. Not Google, mind you. I will never say that Google came out and said we're aiming for PlayStation, but like the ways in which people talked about the Stadia as if that's what they were trying to do with it, and we said many times that that's clearly not what they're trying to do.
There's no way that it can.
Yeah, I think that this is just further proof of that, but I don't think that the Stadia is gone or anything like that.
Right.
But
I
we'll
don't know.
see.
It felt like a death knell to me, right? But that's the beauty of the show and the world. We all get to have our own opinions. But oh my god, the Game Pass is such an incredible deal. Like, why would you make the first next gen game just free to people who subscribe to this service?
Yeah, it's almost like Microsoft backed themselves into a corner with it and tried really hard to get out of it, but nobody will let them now.
Yeah, it's and we can discuss that further if you want to. But yeah, it's one of those situations, and I've played the Medium, and it takes about an hour before it becomes the game I expected a game called The Medium to be.
Okay, all right.
Which is, helping souls pass on.
And not Resident Evil from what I thought it was. Because I thought.
Oh, well, let me tell you, it's Resident Evil.
Okay.
To the point that the bolt cutters that you get are the same bolt cutters
It's the same
from
asset,
the remakes of Resident Evil 2 and 3. Like, the only cool thing is that when you use the bolt cutters, you need to press the triggers at the same time as if you're opening and closing them. Like, that feels tactile and like I'm doing something. And yeah, like it reminds me of Guilt to talk about Stadia. And I'm like, oh, this game is just Guilt. And then suddenly there's a stealth section and I'm walking away from like a crazy stone angel demon that wants to absorb me into itself like it has everyone else in this like abandoned place where I am.
Yeah.
It all ends in me. It's just like the creepiest fucking thing for a villain to say to you. Like, I don't even know more about you, but it all ends in me. And then it absorbs you into it, and it's like, oh, cool. All right, that's terrifying. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm never going to sleep again, video game.
Nice.
And, I mean, there are moments where it looks amazing. There are moments where it doesn't, which is what all new technology has, those moments.
Yeah, we'll wait for the Medium 2 to really get into the graphics, because that's when they'll be stellar. Yeah.
But I think the big thing about the Medium and what it is driving on next gen is that there are moments where you control the character Marianne on both the real world and the ethereal world, and it does this cool split screen thing.
Okay.
And on the one side is the real and on the other is the ethereal. And so they overlap each other, right? Like, they're two planes of existence that overlap. So you're walking in the same thing, but, there might be holes in the real world that don't exist in the ethereal plane. Or it might be like, if I move this thing in the real world, I'll be able to move forward in the ethereal world. So, like, it's sort of like Zelda with the light world, dark world, but in real time. And the fact that it is processing and rendering two separate, like, video feeds at the same time on the screen and you're interacting with both of them
Right.
is
Yeah,
where
I
it's
mean, essentially
impressive.
essentially they have to make like two different rooms that two different characters go into, but the fact that it's able to basically it's basically rendering two games at once, right?
Yes. To the
Yeah,
fact that like I sometimes forget, like I'm focused on one and I'm like, why can't I move? And I'm like, oh, because there's a pool in the other world
right, right.
that's not in this world. And like, so it's cool as the player because like you need to be focused on both of them in order to do it. It's very impressive. It's impressive next gen stuff, but it's also that kind of next gen stuff that's gimmicky, tech demo-y. This is what's possible, but I doubt we'll ever use this again. Does,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that the reasons to use it are going to be limited. It seems like it's very much within the narrative. Like it's a good tool that this narrative allows. But like without this narrative, what else? Why else would this exist?
dude, and it's so funny because like I said, it takes about an hour before you get to the part where you're being a medium and like you need to find their death mask and you need to learn their name in order to help their like husks move on to the other side. And
Okay.
like that's cool. Like I'm like I feel like a medium. But when you get to that point, the whole duality like existence thing is all but abandoned because you're straight walking through mirrors to go to the other side.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's wild. So
Yeah.
like I'm actually checking out a short video of this now, and the other crazy thing that like I think is makes it even more impressive to me is it's not the exact same footage.
Yeah, it's
So like
different.
it's not that they just put like a filter over what you're doing and like add a character. Like there's different camera angles going on. There's different lighting effects happening in each world. Like
Yeah, it's impressive. It's
yeah.
very, very cool. And as that first experience, I'm like, okay, so I get it. I understand what you did, but it feels strange that that game came out in February and the system released in November of last year.
Yeah.
It just furthers the narrative that like there's no reason to own these systems yet.
Yeah, man, it's really it's freaking wild. I have heard legitimate arguments for getting a PS5 if you don't have if you're at the point that I was last year where like your PS4 has basically turned into a jet engine and like is unplayable, like unless you put friggin' noise canceling headphones on, right? Like and you need to upgrade, just buy a PS5 because a ton of the PS4 stuff just works on the PS5 and looks really good. So like I've heard a lot of people that have been in that position. I can't say the same for Xbox because I don't know many people that owned an Xbox One. So like they're like I need to get the Xbox Series X because my Xbox One broke. That I just don't that's like a phrase I've never heard, right? Is and so I can't speak to that same kind of attitude there. But in terms of like I own a PS4, do I need to get a PS5? Right now I don't feel the need to.
I mean, it's Demon's Souls. That's it. That's like
Yeah.
the only game that exists. Like you also have like the Battle Royale game that's free to PS Plus members that came out this month, but like that's dead in the water.
Well,
I don't
and
know
Demon
anybody who's
Souls,
playing it.
correct me if I'm wrong, is Demon Souls just not available anywhere else, or is it just that particular version of Demon Souls is not available anywhere else? Like
Demon
Demon Soul,
Souls is not. This is the only place to play the Blue Point remake of the game is on the PS5.
the Blue Point remake, but isn't there like a remastered Demon Souls from years ago? I might be thinking of something else. I may be
No,
thinking of
well, I
Dark
mean,
Souls, or I may
Demon
be thinking of.
Souls. There was a internet refreshed version of the 2009 game that was
Mhm.
like polished up, and if you ran a PlayStation 3 emulator, you could apply these mods that would make it run in 60 FPS and have smoother like
But
control.
not like out of the box, like I've got a PS4, I could put this game in and play it.
No, it
Demon
was a
Souls just doesn't exist
PS3
in that way.
game. It
Okay,
does not exist in that way at all.
okay.
All the Dark Souls games were given PS4 re-releases,
I
and
must be thinking of Souls games then.
yeah,
Of Dark Souls, I mean.
yeah. Demon Souls, like the reason why it got the remake that it did is the series didn't really take off until Dark Souls came out in 2011, and then they released it to make sure everybody could play them. And then there was like this outlier game that nobody had played. So when it came down to like we need a game to package with the PS5, it seemed like the logical choice.
Yeah.
And it was great. I enjoyed my time with it. But you know, it's also not the same as playing that PS3 version, because there's some quality of life stuff that takes away the beauty of that game the first time through.
The beautiful ugliness of,
Yeah.
of Demon Souls. Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. So it's not like, if once Horizon Zero Dawn 2 comes out, PS5 will have like a system seller.
Yeah.
Once God of War Ragnarok comes out, because those games, by all accounts, are supposed to just be PS5 games.
Right.
I don't know if that's going to happen, if we're still seeing the shortage, if we're still seeing the scalpers crying on the internet about why do we have an image problem.
Yeah, I mean, but also it's just, the other side of that is like, the PS2 was the longest lifespan of game like development ever. Like into the PS4 era, they were still making PS2 versions of things like FIFA and stuff like that, right? So like PlayStation has this history of releasing for their systems for a long time. So in addition to like all of the weird stuff going on in the world today, I mean everything from coronavirus to scalpers fucking the whole system up, right? Like that idea is, the other thing is the mentality. They have to get past that mentality of people just expecting them. So they need to let people know, essentially, like if they're going to stop making PS4 versions of games, they need to put out like an exclusive on PS5 like marketing campaign. And the fact that we haven't seen that yet makes me kind of leery. It makes me wonder, like they're not done with the PS4 yet, because if they had, we would have heard about it.
Well, I mean, the real question is, Ratchet and Clank is kind of going to be the first system seller, coming out in June, and I think that's a PS5 exclusive. I don't know anything about it because I was never a Ratchet and Clank guy.
I gotta say, I may be misremembering, but I think I actually legit saw an ad the other day that said PS5 exclusive, like had that in the marketing. And I wonder if that's exactly what I'm talking about, is like,
right.
The fact, like seeing that on one game is great. I need to start seeing that on every game before I believe that the PS4 is done.
Yeah. I mean, the real issue is so many. I feel like the PS5 was a surprise for so many people.
Yeah.
In this weird way. Like, I think about, I went back to my office today, right? It was my first time back in office in about a month. And I have a postcard from when I first played Cyber Shadow on my bulletin board, like in my office, because I was that excited for it. And like looking at it, I'm like, yeah, you didn't know that this was going to release in a world where the PS5 existed, right? I played this game for the first time in 2019.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is because PlayStation didn't have anything to prove. You know, they put the PS4 Pro out and people were pretty satisfied. Whereas with like Xbox, like everybody was just like, you're getting closer with every new version of the Xbox One you put out, but this is still not what we want out of an Xbox. And like, so they kind of needed to move the cycle forward, like Microsoft needed to. And so when PlayStation was like, yeah, we're doing it too, it was like, it wasn't so much a surprise so much as just like they don't have the boost of like the necessity, right? The fire under their ass that Microsoft did. Like they don't have the benefit of that. And so yeah, like I'm curious to see how PlayStation handles this transition, specifically because it should be relatively smooth for them, but in that it means that there's no fun in it either.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Oh, Sejohn, what else? Do we have anything else you want to talk about?
No, man.
I'm here for it. Like,
that's. I mean, like I half mentioned earlier some stuff that we're gonna be talking about in the near future with Zack Snyder and Justice League. In it, I am personally like prepping myself for Justice League, and in that I actually started like way back. And I watched Day of the Dead, the Zack Snyder Day of the Dead, and then on top of that, I'm currently rereading Watchmen with the intention of then watching Zack Snyder's Watchmen in the next coming week or so. And then after that, I am gonna do a watch of Justice League, the original cut, just to kind of like be like I am getting seriously prepped for this re-release of this movie because I know that I on this show alone, not mentioning the real world where I would run down the street screaming my hatred for that film. But like on this show, I have talked many times about the issues that I have with that film and with DC cinema in general and stuff. And there are things that we have learned that I won't say that everything that's come out about that movie is a surprise or that I hold it as like gospel truth about what the experiences were. A lot of excuses have been thrown around for why certain things were done and why decisions were made and stuff like that. At the end of the day, WB backing a remake of that film with the amount of money that they have thrown behind it and the amount of support that they have clearly shown by having it going up on HBO Max and all that stuff is unprecedented. So no matter my feelings about the original film, no matter my feelings about the situation that led to the original film, I'd be stupid to not be paying attention. So in that, I'm going whole hog on like getting ready for this movie. So that's kind of what I've been doing this week is a lot of like poking in on like some DC like backlog stories that I haven't really finished up. I finally got back to some Thomas King Batman to kind of get into some relationship stuff that he has with Diana and Clark in those books. I've been, as I said, rereading Watchmen, been watching some Zack Snyder movies and like kind of like testing the waters with certain people in my life of being just like, yeah, and that Justice League remake, huh? And then just waiting to hear what people have to say about it, like that sort of thing. So like I have been mentally preparing for Justice League this whole week, longer than this week, but yeah.
That's good. I'm glad. I am not going to mentally prepare. I'm just going to slingshot myself back into it.
Good.
And that's because I liked that movie. I saw it twice, and I saw it on like the back end of 8 hours in a car with too many people, and prior to that playing board games in Philadelphia. So like I'm excited for that nostalgic feeling to go back to that. But I have been visiting HBO Max. I watched The Little Things, which goes away on like the 26th of February. If you haven't seen it, it features Jared Leto, and he has been nominated for an award for his performance in it. And then let's not also.
So does Justice League.
Yeah. And let's not discount the fact that it's Rami Malek and Denzel Washington. Like this movie was Oscar bait. If you look at the 3 Oscar-winning actors who were in it.
Also, it's a murder mystery that involves children, right? Am I wrong? Am I misremembering the concept of the story?
It's not children.
Okay.
It is kidnappings. It's kidnapping up and down like the California coast.
Right. But it's a dark noir with Oscar-winning actors in it. It's Oscar bait is I think the perfect.
It's Oscar bait.
Perfect description.
It's that Amy Adams movie that had Michael Sheen in it. Not Michael Sheen. Michael Shannon. Nocturnal Creatures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's like Nocturnal Creatures, or 3 Billboards Outside Billings.
Yeah.
Like those are the things that it reminded me of. And because the Oscars are pushed back, we don't know. But also, I don't know if it would because of the HBO Max of it all. Like, it feels like the people that have watched it because it's available on HBO Max have had negative things to say about it. Like, I was kind of wary to watch it because I had heard a lot of things like, it seems like these HBO Max films are things that they weren't super, like, invested in to have audiences. And I'm like, oh, that's an interesting thing to say. I was excited about this movie. Like,
I'd be really interested to know exactly what movies they would point to in that, because
Wonder Woman 1984, which you watched half an hour of.
Yeah, but even then, I don't agree that even that was meant to not have an audience. What does that mean?
Well, no, it's ones that like, it's not so much to have an audience, but like, it's okay that we're releasing it straight to home because it was going to be a gamble in the theater anyway.
See, but yeah, but like
But that seems I disagree with
weird.
that. Yeah,
Right,
like
yes.
like that's not
like I have to hugely disagree with that.
yeah. It's something I disagree with, but it's something that I've seen enough places that like it was pretty easy for them to decide that we're going to go simultaneous with these specific things where like I don't think we're going to see an at-home release of Black Widow because of the nature of that film and the fact that, of course, like right now, it has been released that they're gonna finally bring it to Disney Plus, and I'm just an idiot, right? Like, I fully expect that as soon as I finish recording this, I'm going to see that somewhere in the world, right? Comic Book Resources or Screen Rant.
Yeah.
Like, it's coming to Disney Plus, but like the fact that takes place in a bygone era. There's no real pressure to release it because it can only illuminate more. It can only give us more information about things that are happening. I don't think anything will be revealed in it that is like stopping up other films from coming out, or like WandaVision or Falcon and Winter Soldier or Loki. I just
or
don't
Miss
see
Marvel
that.
or
yeah, or any of the things that like they said we're shifting to a focus on Disney Plus, but I think that they want to hold Black Widow as that film that welcomes people back into the cinema to see a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
For better or for worse. And because of that, like, it's where these people are making the argument that, like, Warner Brothers knew that Wonder Woman 1984 was gonna be a divisive film, so it's okay if we release it to HBO Max.
I wouldn't, man.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing.
I think the idea that it makes it an easier pill to swallow for a higher up to say to them, like, this might not play well in theaters, so we're going to put it on HBO Max. That's a nice, like, common sense, like, feel to it. But the second you start parsing the layers, it doesn't make sense. Any studio exec worth their salt would have rather have seen Wonder Woman 84 hit a theater.
Right, because Wonder Woman 84, like all of the DC movies that came before, would have had a gangbusters opening weekend if that was the only way to see it, and then you would have had the fall off that happens.
I wouldn't have walked out 30 minutes into it. I turned it off because I had the pleasure of turning it off 30 minutes into it. So they actually straight up lost like a full view of that film. And I don't know how they keep track of that stuff or not, whether it matters to them if it was played for 2 minutes or 2 hours. But at the end of the day, if I had paid money to sit down in a theater to watch that movie, I would have watched to the end. And who knows, maybe 10 minutes after I stopped watching that movie, I would have actually found something in it worth sticking around for. You know what I mean? Like, so there's something to be said about the fact that they actually, for at least in my one anecdotal case, made a mistake in releasing that to HBO Max.
Right. But I think that's the thing, is that there are enough anecdotal cases like yours for both Wonder Woman 84 and The Little Things that it looks like a pattern has begun to emerge. And I disagree. Even though, like, Wonder Woman 1984, it was my second viewing where I decided, no, I hate this movie. This movie outright wants me to not like it. Like it, and that's to me and my interpretation of it. But then something like The Little Things, edge of my seat the whole time, invested. I also watched.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I also watched The Good Liar because it's leaving HBO Max. And it's real fun to watch, like, masters in their craft flex their muscles.
Helen Mirren and Ian McKellen, correct?
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, I understand that when in the book, I imagine that the last reveal is not so, like, whiplashy. And not the movie Whiplash, but, like, oh, wow, didn't see that coming at all. Like, you gave me nothing that indicated that was about to happen.
Oops.
And that's fine, but like because of that, it's like, you know, it just left a sour taste in my mouth. Where like I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to ruin it, but it's worth watching, and I enjoyed it. It's just that like because of the nature of the fact that this is a movie, you can't go into the same depth that a novel would, and I bet in the novel you would have maybe like been clued in on some level.
Explored this idea
Yeah.
a little bit more. Yeah.
Or so it like, or you felt the full emotional weight of it, because it doesn't feel like a final act reveal to make everything fit into a nice little box. But that's leaving. So if you have HBO Max, I recommend it. It's I mean, Jesus, Ian McKellen, he's so good, and Helen Mirren, it's good. It's a great little movie. But you know, it's clearly an adaptation of a novel, if that makes sense.
All right, man.
Yeah. So I think that's good. I think that we've touched on everything. I got a lot off my chest about weird nostalgic feelings and Devon as a little kid. And I'm sorry if that wasn't your bag, but you know, it had to work. I was going through some emotional memories.
Yeah. Well, you know, and like it's important that we look at this stuff, especially when we talk about all these things like re-releases and what it's going to be like trying to get back to a sense of normalcy going forward for any of this stuff. I'm glad that you got it out.
Yeah. So, if you would like to share how you're preparing for the Snyder Cut of Justice League with Sejohn, you can find him on Twitter at Siege versus the World.
And if you have a dumb story about how you got in trouble when you were in elementary school, you can find Devon at Devon D. Decker.
I want to hear them. I do want to hear them. Because it's real fun to explore how stupid shit you did when you were 10 made you the person you are today. And on that note, William, why don't you take us home?
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.